Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 248 of At Odds with Wrestling. Joe and Adam here. Adam, hello, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little sleep deprived, not because I was sick last week, but I'm seriously playing way too much Grand Theft Auto with Todd.
Yes.
It's getting bad. I probably I sneak on there by myself in the middle of the night just to play. I'm all right, Todd's asleep. I'm gonna go on and try to get ahead of him because I spend my money way too quickly and he hoards it. And so we have very different playing styles, but so I have to make time to play with him, and then I have to have my own me time on there.
Now, didn't he say on an episode of Longbox Heroes After Dark that you were making him spend his money for your little group so that you could save up for your flying DeLorean or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, well, in order to play certain missions, you have to buy properties. And because I was saving up for the flying DeLorean, I didn't want to spend any of my money. So I have to really twist his arm to get him to spend money to buy something. And I have to sell it to him. Come on, Todd, buy the casino apartment. We'll get missions out of it. And I don't know why he's saving his money. I don't know if he thinks he could take it with him or something like that. I'm the whole point of playing the game is to make money. And I just want a DeLorean. And once I got the DeLorean, I had to make it so it shot missiles, Joe.
But you just said that he's been saving his money and you've been spending your money.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's very difficult to get him to spend his money. But I was saving my money to buy the DeLorean. Now I have it, and I finished last night with $12 in my pocket.
Is he maybe saving up for the DeLorean as well? So you guys have matching flying cars?
He has been copying a lot of the stuff that I do, but no, he's his car of choice is a car that's armored so that nobody will attack him. He's a safe little boy. He likes to stay on the ground.
It sounds like a very complicated game.
Oh, it is. I'm sure people who've played it are laughing at me, but be all right, first of all, this was 5 years ago's fad, and you're now just starting to play it. But for somebody who's never played online anything, there's a huge learning curve for me. And plus it also sucks that while it is nice to play with Todd, the majority of the missions require 4 players. And our attempts to strong arm people into joining our posse have fallen flat so far. So I think if anybody wants to join our group, I will have Todd send you an autographed 8x10 as payment.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we could really use a third and a fourth.
Now we also had enough of your personal life. I haven't done anything. I'm just getting ready for everything this weekend for myself. But the Patreon episode went up on Monday.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you got a chance to listen to it or otherwise. Or
I did. I listened to it the day before. I have the perks of having the account access.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Of course.
But yeah, no, it was a very interesting episode. About half the stuff went over my head, which is to be expected for any kind of wrestling podcast.
True.
But I enjoyed the stuff that I heard, especially you explaining Mantis, the worker's handshake to him.
And he's a kayfabe and son of a bitch, as mentioned, because he still gives that handshake.
Yeah.
And didn't he insinuate that OC gives that handshake?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mantis insinuated that he doesn't. He, as in Mantis, doesn't give the worker handshake anymore. He was kind of taken back that you would insinuate that he did. But he did say that OC is the last true worker handshake that he knows.
He's full of shit. He is. But anyway, go check that out. There's the preview there. I think it's you can get 5 minutes. Or I think I told you a specific timestamp or clip or something. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, the first 5 minutes of the podcast is what's free because right off the rip, right after you introduce them, you start talking about the fallout from LVAC.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so that was at the very beginning. So you get the first 5 minutes. Check that out. It just happened to work out nicely that it was on a little bit of a teaser for the next part of the conversation. But obviously sign up for the Patreon. $5 a month gets you that, gets you the conversations with Joe, with Ian Vafleur, Derek Sabato, next month, Ed Cody, so all the Chikara legends.
Listen, it just so happened that it be Chikara people this time around, and I had Ed packed up for a while, and as we record this, is enjoying his Twice concert.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we'll be hearing from Ed later on in the show.
Yeah, if Twice was performing across the street from me and admission was free, I wouldn't go. But more power to you, Ed.
Right. Listen, we all like what we like, you know?
Exactly.
So let's get on to our show.
Let's do it.
And now, At Odds with Wrestling presents This Day in Wrestling History.
All right, so not on my list, but I'll just give it a mention. This day in wrestling history 1 year ago was the last AEW Blood and Guts, where it was the proto Blackpool Combat Club and Eddie Kingston against the Jericho Appreciation Society.
Okay. That was the one of the 2.0 guys was hanging, like, bleeding to death from outside the cage, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember their new names, Daddy Magic or...
A Cool Hand Angelo Parker. How dare you?
Yeah, that's the one. He's got a sick comb.
And he got a new one. He got another new one from Jericho.
I saw. It's like bedazzled. Jericho's such a nice guy.
Exactly. Also on this day in wrestling history, if I do my gazintas 7 years ago, World Wrestling Entertainment held their Money in the Bank pay-per-view from the TD Bank Arena in Boston, Massachusetts, which is where the next Blood and Guts is going to be.
Okay.
Again, it's a weird time in World Wrestling Entertainment. Lots of recognizable names. It was Usos versus Eric Rowan and Luke Harper for the tag titles to open the show. There was 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches. One was for the suitcase, and then the other one was for the vacant title. I have no idea why the title was vacant at this time.
No idea. And that was 9 years ago. I think he said
9
6.
years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I said 7. Yeah. My math is off. Like I said, I'm wearing socks today, so I apologize. But again, it's just like a period of WWE that I was definitely watching, but I don't remember as well as I should, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I can't be the one to judge this based on, because obviously I don't remember much from any period, but this is definitely just a big blank spot in my memory, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how anybody like Tim and Marcus can be like, what was the pay-per-view where Roman beat Orton? I'll be like, oh, that was Over the Edge, 2015. I don't know. But like, I can't imagine having that kind of knowledge of this, especially this era.
Right. Post 2003 WWE stuff, like my memory just gets so spotty.
Yeah. But hey, Adam Rose was on there. How about that?
Mm-hmm. Remember him?
Yeah.
Remember Curtis Axel? Remember Ryback?
See, Alberto Del Rio's on there.
All the stars.
Yeah.
But on this day in wrestling history, we have, of course, our 25 years ago head-to-head Monday Nitro versus Monday Night Raw. Both shows are live. Nitro, very interesting show. So no clips, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get so this is a very weird, and we'll get to it when we get to Raw as well. But on this episode of Nitro, for a company that is doing a 3-hour show, a 3-hour show in Nitro, a 2-hour show in Thunder, and a 2-hour show in Saturday Night, and they're overflowing with talent, there is no less than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new debuting talents on this show, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of them is Vampiro. Vampiro debuts here and then is not seen again for like another 6 months.
Oh, those were a glorious 6 months then.
Right. So then Ultimo Dragon has a bunch of his students show up here as well. Dragon Kid, who wrestled under the name Little Dragon, Judo Suwa, Sumo Fuji, Magnum Tokyo, and Shima, who would go on to start Dragon Gate and go on to do Strong Hearts, which were those like Chinese acrobat guys that were supposed to be part of the early days of AEW.
Okay.
But of all these guys that debut, the only one who ends up sticking is Magnum Tokyo when they put him with Alex Wright in Disco Inferno.
Yeah, I don't have a memory of that either.
Right. They were the Dancing Fools.
$1 million idea. How's that escaping my memory? I don't know.
Yes. So we're getting closer to Bash at the Beach pay-per-view. Hogan and Rodman taking on DDP and Karl Malone. Karl Malone makes his in-ring Nitro debut, and they announce on this show that the co-main event for Nitro is going to be another tag team match of the Giant and Curt Hennig taking on Goldberg and Kevin Greene.
Okay.
The tandem that I said, if they paired these two up, they would have won the war.
They paired them up and they didn't win, so your theory is wrong.
No. So and again, key phrasing here. They didn't pair them up. They announced that they were going to be a tag team match at the upcoming pay-per-view. But Adam, even today, 25 years ago, a lot can change between a match getting announced for a pay-per-view and that pay-per-view happening.
I fail to believe that WCW would ever announce anything and not follow through with it. What kind of things are you accusing them of?
Hot shotting and burning money.
Speaking of burning money, where's Jericho?
Jericho is not on any of these shows right now. He's the cruiserweight champion, but he's like in a weird program, like where he's just interfering in Dean Malenko matches and not doing promos.
That's why they lost the war right there.
Yes.
Complete bullshit. You have 3 hours and you can't fucking put Jericho in there somewhere?
Mm-hmm. Well, he's in there. He's doing interference. He's just not cutting promos or doing anything interesting, you know?
Well, that doesn't count.
So over on Raw, it's the night after King of the Ring. And again, we don't record on Wednesdays, but, that was Mick Foley versus Undertaker, Hell in a Cell match. Arguably one of the top 5 most memorable moments of the last 25 years in all of professional wrestling.
Yeah, I thought you were going to be like, and highlights of this match were shown on Raw, so we're going to talk about it.
Highlights were shown. Well, no, this was back in the day where the night after on Raw and Nitro, they wouldn't show clips; they would only show stills.
Yeah, I got to encourage that replay, brother. Got
to get the replay, right? But also on that pay-per-view, Kane defeated Stone Cold Steve Austin in a First Blood Hell in a Cell match. They do the rematch here on Raw, and Austin wins the belt back.
At the time, I was upset about that.
Yeah.
Now I could give two shits about Kane, but back then I was like, give the guy a run.
Uh-huh.
I was starting to get Austin fatigue.
Val Venus, one of the most hated people in today's world, not even professional wrestling, just a hated person. Go listen to the Stink Sheet for their Val Venus segment.
Yeah, play the spotlight for Val Venus music, Joe. Come on.
I need to have that music loaded up for next. I'm gonna have Kurt send it to me. But as he's coming out to take on Dick Togo, he notices a young lady in the crowd that he makes eyes at. I wonder where this is going. So also on this day, we get another debut. Now, Adam, I'm not going to play the whole thing of this, but I'm going to blow this up, okay?
Okay.
Again, you might have read the notes, but I don't know if you read the notes.
I actually saw this video earlier today.
Oh, damn it. Okay. Because I want you to listen to this hype up of this person, okay?
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Miss Electricity herself.
Vince McMahon, the owner of the World Wrestling Federation, is pleased and proud to announce the signing to an exclusive WWF contract, one of the greatest wrestling stars in the world, Steven Regal.
Well, Sable doing Mr. McMahon's bidding for him, and here comes Steven Regal.
So obviously that's not his actual music.
That's what I was going to say. Because it's like generic Southern rock music.
A man who has wrestled in 24 countries,
right,
won over 60 titles worldwide.
So Regal comes out as Lord Steven Regal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just straight up Steven Regal. And this would be his only match at this point as real Steven Regal. They take him off TV, and then they do all the real man's vignettes, which we will be playing as they come up.
Excellent.
And then I don't think he comes back to TV until September.
Okay.
So, like, he's another one, like, similar to Vampiro, where, like, Vampiro is someone that ends up being a big player in WCW. On this day, 25 years ago, he debuts on Nitro, and then he's, like, off TV for 6 months. Regal, who ends up being a big player in the world of professional wrestling, debuts on WWF Raw on this day, and then just isn't seen on TV for, like, another 3 months.
Well, I'm pretty sure I saw on Twitter that, like, Regal just started to have, like, his big problems, like, right around his debut, and that's why he was pulled?
Well, okay. Yes and no. If you read Regal's book, even in the talent meeting that he had with Vince that he got hired, he was so fucked up on, like, pills and booze, he passed out in the meeting with Vince McMahon. But having JR, Austin, and Foley all pulling for you, it still got him hired. But it was just like, he debuts, they're like, okay, he needs to go to rehab because he's fucked up. And like, what could we do with him to bring him back with a fresh coat of paint, you know?
Yeah. Man, I want a William Regal figure, like, in the worst way.
1,000%. I would buy a real man's man Regal.
When did he change to William? Was it because, like, and I know the story is because, like, Vince said you can't have two people named Steve?
Yeah.
But, like, how long into the run before they made the switch? Do you remember?
So you have to bear in mind, he is only on TV as a real man's man, Steven Regal, for maybe 4 months. And then he's off again. He goes back to WCW in, like, early 99. He gets fired again, comes back to WWF, and they send him to developmental. And then he's on TV at the beginning of 2001. And it's at the beginning of 2001 when he re-debuts there, because you remember, Regal was a big part of, like, the Alliance and everything. So in 2001, when he re-debuts, is when he's William Steven Regal, and then just immediately to William Regal.
Okay. I'm surprised he's stuck with that.
Well, listen, you do what you're told when you're Vince's lapdog or Triple H's lapdog or whatever, right?
Yeah, but I mean, wasn't he William Regal in AEW?
Yeah, and again, I think it was just one of those things where, like, that was the name he was known by. You know,
Okay.
I'm surprised he didn't go back to Steven Regal, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
So we get another debut on this episode of Monday Night Raw. Less of a debut, but a return, let's say.
Okay.
Precious Paul Ellering, get out here! What?
Now, Sonny had been previously managing LOD 2000.
I thought he was
The old boy.
Cimarron or something, but there he is. One of the most intelligent, one of the most cerebral
What a down.
managers in the history of the game. The guy that put the LOD together. The man that led the LOD to title after title in every federation. Yeah, I think I saw him at the X Games.
They should have made him wear the same outfit that Sonny would wear.
Paul Ellering has been on the sidelines a long time.
Let's take a look at the best thing to come to Cleveland and the best thing to happen to Cleveland since
a low
they
bar.
ditched Albert Bell.
Oh.
He's a stinking loser. Now Paul Ellering, he did it all for us. He got us to the top. And you know, time's been tough for the LOD. But we're reborn with Paul. Not only is he our greatest friend, he's our mentor. And I know, Paul, you're happy to be with us again. And I know you've got something to say.
Oh, wait a minute.
Wait a minute. That's DOA. Well, the rivals of the Legion of Doom, Skull and 8-Ball of DOA, riding those Titan bikes down to the ring. Again, we're just moments away from Stone Cold and Kane's WWF title war. But we may have a tag team war right here, King. We can't seem to get one ceremony going tonight without some sort call an interruption.
I want to introduce you to my new team, 8-Ball and Skull.
Oh, God damn it.
It was a setup. Ellering returned, and
Ronald
he set
and
up.
Donald Harris,
He set
Bad
up
Place Hall
these
of
two
Famers.
guys, and they were like sons to him. What the heck? Good God.
I can't imagine Ellering stuck around long, did he?
Oh, I think he makes it to like September. It's like maybe 3 months, maybe less.
As much as like people like our age reminisce about like or just remember Paul Ellering, he's never around for very long. Like back with Rocco for that WrestleMania where Hawk was annihilated.
Yep.
Like there was that run, there was this run here, him with the Authors of Pain. He doesn't stick around very long.
No, the 92 run, he's there from Mania to SummerSlam, so that's like 5 months. He's here less than 3. And then, the Authors of Pain run, like you mentioned. Yeah. And like that's just his WWF stints, but you talk about like his time in like Memphis and NWA and Jim Crockett and George and all those places in like the early 80s and stuff. But yeah, I maybe don't think he was a fit for the WWE system,
Yeah. I think they're bringing him out for the nostalgia pop, but if you're like me and didn't watch anything pre-1990, you have no appreciation for him,
Right. Well, and again, we just when we did Over the Edge, just what was it, month and a half ago, Sunny was still with the Legion of Doom for that, and then I think that was her last appearance on TV, and then she just never mentioned again.
Yeah. And she went off to ECW and then WCW.
Yeah. But there was one more thing that happened on this episode of Raw, Adam.
All right.
One of the most infamous things, if we talked before, that Foley going off the cage, Hell in a Cell at King of the Ring, is a top 5 wrestling moment, good place, let's say, in the last 25 years. 24 hours later, we get the start of arguably one of the top 5 bad place moments of the last 25 years in professional wrestling.
And King, this is a unique hybrid of boxing and wrestling. Well, WWF is always the innovator, and I'm going to let you go over the rules in a second, but this is a combination combat. You can wrestle, you can box, you can throw down your opponent. Tell them the rules, JR. 3 1-minute rounds, 36-minute point system in effect. The most punches per round will earn you 5 points. For each takedown you earn, you will receive 5 points. And for each knockdown you earn, you will receive 10 points. The legendary Danny Hodge will be the official for this contest, and a knockdown ends the brawl. No, a knockout. Knockout is knockout.
Oh, great music. Dude, brawl for all blocks.
The following is a first round Brawl for All contest. Making his way to the ring from Buffalo, New York. Weighing in at 245 pounds, Marvelous Mark Miro.
Dixie Jackson got the remix of this music.
It focused on, as far as boxing, the punching skills, and the wrestling takedown skills. Well, you know what's going to be cool about this is the fact that usually in a wrestling match, you got maybe a 60-minute time limit. In these, you got 60-second rounds, so you can pace yourself. You can start out slow. You can try to feel out your opponent. Here, you got 3 60-second rounds.
And his opponent from Anvil, Pennsylvania, weighing in at 244 pounds, the lethal weapon, Steve Flickman.
So you're going to have to go at your opponent full speed. The second that bell rings, you got 60 seconds to either knock him out, score the most points, or somehow become the winner. You got to do it quickly. Danny Hodge, a referee, a 2-time United States Olympian, one of the greatest amateur wrestlers of all time, a United States Golden Glove boxing champion as well, will be the official for this contest. We have ringside physicians, we have trainers, and we are going to have some stiff.
Get comfortable. This could go a while.
We're not going to watch the whole thing, but we certainly could.
They're going for a takedown, and Blackman taking down Merrill, and that will be a takedown for Blackman, and Blackman breaks the hold. Once a takedown is earned, both men will return to their vertical base. Right.
All right. So we're literally 20 seconds into the first round, and the boring chants have already started.
Those fans didn't know what good entertainment was. I swear, I might watch all the Brawl for Alls tonight.
Okay, so I'm going to say this. Yeah, go watch all the Brawl for Alls, but whether you do it before or whether you do it after, I know a couple of years back, they did the Dark Side of the Ring about Brawl for All, right?
Yep.
So friends of the show, I've guested over on their show before, Between the Sheets, Chris Zellner, David Bixenspan, they did a special about all of this, right? Mm-hmm. From beginning to end, from it being mentioned the first time in The Observer, what it was originally supposed to be, like, and then all the way up to the final match of the Brawl for All, which is WrestleMania 15, right?
Yeah.
It's on the shorter side of a Between the Sheets episode. It's a lean 3 hours.
That's very snackable for them.
But I give it my highest recommend. It's actually 3.5 hours. My apologies. But it gets my highest recommendation to go listen to because it's just fascinating to see a concept doomed from the start get a full berth on TV. Because, like, nowadays, something gets on TV, you know, WWF and obviously AEW, of course, maybe things might get a little bit more legs underneath them. But, like, if something doesn't work on the first day, you'll never see it again.
Yeah, and it'll never be mentioned. There won't be like, oh, we decided to cancel. It's just, yeah, we're going to sweep that under the rug.
Right, but this gets, like, 2 months worth of TV time, right?
Yeah, they were committed to it.
So I say go listen to this episode. I'm probably going to listen to this again tonight. Just because it's such a fascinating episode, a fascinating piece of history, and a fascinating time capsule of, like, arguably WWF's hottest, you know, time, you know, ever, 1998 leading into 1999, and in the middle of it all is the Brawl for All.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I asked you this question when the Dark Side of the Ring aired, but if you had to, I'm not asking for like 12 or 16 people, but if you had to throw out a couple current WWE names, if you were going to do a Brawl for All right now, who are you putting in there? And they have to be like relatively positioned, kind of like the 98 people were. Like, you can't be like, oh, I'm going to be like Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. You know, people that are expendable to say.
Chad Gable.
Okay.
The Creed brothers. I would throw somebody funny like The Miz in there. You know, just to work it a bit, you know?
Uh-huh.
But I can't think of anyone else on, like, main roster or NXT roster that has, like, a legit background.
Yeah.
To be able to go out there and do that, because they kind of downplay that a bit, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you're not putting your Bobby Lashley out there. You're not putting Brock Lesnar because they'd murder him, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
My money's behind Otis on this one.
Again, I think Otis would be okay, but I think a Creed brother would get him, you know?
Yeah, maybe.
So let's get into what we watched or want to talk about from this past week, Adam. I'll let you start for a change of pace.
Yeah, just mix things up a little bit. Well, you know what, Joe? I'm going to mix things up, and I'm going to talk about NXT.
Sure.
So I don't watch NXT from start to finish, but I do give it a quick fast forward pretty much every week. So an average 2-hour episode, you know, I'll get through in about 5 minutes or whatever. But one of the things that I constantly stop on, and I've mentioned this before, is the Chase U stuff. And I don't know if you kind of follow a little bit along, like on Twitter or whatever, but the gimmick was that Andre Chase, who's the head of Chase U, he was laid out by Braun Breaker, and you haven't seen him in months. So Duke Hudson took over as the head of the university, Duke University. And like originally it was like a power grab because he was constantly he was like the Starscream of Chase U, and I loved it. But he got overwhelmed with grading papers, and he started neglecting his students. And one of his students is Thea Hale. And so Thea Hale went to learn how to get a killer instinct from Gulak and Little Regal, and she had a match against Tiffany Stratton. She ended up losing. It was fine, but it was an interesting storyline. But this past week, they had, after the match, Gulak and Regal ended up taking out Duke Hudson, and Andre Chase came back for the first time in like months of being gone. And I swear to God, he got an Orange Cassidy pop. Like, I get it. It's the Performance Center or whatever. Half of them are, WWE pilled people or students or paid people, whatever. I don't care. But for the first time in a long time, I was watching NXT and I had a little bit of a smile on my face because of the fact that Andre Chase got like a massive, massive pop and Chase U was reformed. So I just enjoyed it. And I was like, this is so weird that it's like NXT and I haven't talked about it in months. I can't tell you anything else that happened on the show or who was involved because I don't know their names anymore, but I thought that was a good bit.
I usually check their stuff out on YouTube. I don't watch NXT live. I don't think anyone does. But that's cool. Andre Chase is a good dude, and it's interesting that they're doing something interesting with that group.
Yeah, it's been a slow build, like ever since they put Duke Hudson in there. And like Duke Hudson's one of those guys that like looks like $1 million, but they tried like 27 different gimmicks with him. He was the poker player for a little while. I do. And nothing stuck with him. So they're like, all right, you can just be one of 20 people in Chase U. And it was one of those things where in typical WWE fashion, like you would see him scheming, well, like on camera, but behind the back of Andre Chase. But like Andre Chase would never find out about it. And then eventually he just became ingratiated with him. It was one of those things where it's like the bad guy joins the good guys over time, And it's just typical WWE storytelling, but for whatever reason it worked.
I don't think I have any. Awesome too. Yeah, I don't think I have any WWE stuff this week.
Yeah, I was mixing it up. I went first this week, and I decided to do an NXT thing.
You know who I do want to talk about this week?
Who's that?
Not the name that other people call him by. They put like an adjective in front of his name, or maybe like a number and an adjective in front of his name. But I have no respect for him, so I'll just call him Phil. But I will say that Phil has had a very funny week this week.
Okay.
So you have the match on Collision, and during picture-in-picture, and, on my very legal feed that I watch 2 hours after the show airs, there is no picture-in-picture. You get to see what was going on in picture-in-picture, even though the GIF had already been around quite a bit. During the match, and then even in the match on Sunday at the pay-per-view, Phil did the big boot leg drop combo.
And the ear cup.
And the ear cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost as though he sees everyone talking about him online on how he's like Hulk Hogan these days, and he's got his Brutus Beefcake and his Brian Knobbs and his Jimmy Hart and Danhausen and FTR and Brody King. It's good to see Phil be so gotten to and to really not go for any title in AEW or the Owen Hart Cup, but to go for the title of the most online Reddit man in wrestling. It's a very prestigious title.
See, you call it being gotten to. I say he's seeing what the fans are saying about him and he's embracing it. He's a man of the people.
Yes, what the fans are saying about it. All the people that love him.
He knows he's plugged into the online community.
Yes. Then during the match with Kojima, he did the bit in the corner where he gave Kojima a bunch of the lariats, and he said lariat after each one, and then looked in the camera and said, "This one is for you, D." He's going to be on commentary on Collision this week for the big Samoan Joe versus Roderick Strong match. And this is not my original idea because I had multiple people DM it to me, and I saw people tweet it out loud. Hopefully they're on a 7-second delay with Punk on commentary, especially talking about how strong Roderick Strong is. And if you know, you know.
I feel like that's a reference to Ring of Honor commentary that can't be played in 2023.
No, it couldn't have been played at the time. But of all the of all the I can't say racist, but of all the sexist and homophobic stuff that Phil would say on commentary in Ring of Honor, this is a third bucket of things.
Okay.
And I'll tell you off air.
Fair enough.
But congratulations to Phil, the most gotten to online Reddit wrestler of the week.
You showed him, Joe. I'll tell you.
Now listen, I'm sure he'll listen. He didn't listen. If he replied to me tweet to wish Ed a happy birthday, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
You would have given him a fresh bunny for that?
Yeah, I would have given him like the summer.
Okay. Would have been hard because it might have melted in the summer, you know? Got to give him a fresh one in the winter.
Not the shitty chocolate that I buy.
All right. Well, I'll stick with AEW. Obviously, we were both at the DJ compound for Forbidden Door, and I mentioned prior to the pay-per-view that I was really looking forward to Kenny versus Ospreay and Danielson versus Omega. Danielson versus Okada. Obviously, the Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay match that went on earlier, that set like a killer pace that was hard for really anything that came after that to live up to. I don't give a shit what the safety police says. I absolutely love that Tiger Driver. We all let out an audible gasp in horror when that happened, and that's a cool thing to happen in wrestling. I don't give a shit. Kenny was fine with it. Ospreay was fine with it. Then I'm fine with it. And then Danielson versus Okada. Not knowing what we know now, watching the match, I was like, okay, I think I had said, this isn't quite the same pace. I feel like this is maybe a little bit of a letdown for what I was expecting. And then the finish of the match with Danielson kind of getting Okada with the unique submission out of nowhere, like it kind of seemed weird. But to find out like the next day or a day or two later that Danielson had a fucking broken arm during the match and he still wrestled for like another 15 minutes is crazy. But overall, like I really like Forbidden Door. Even if it was just those two matches, it would have been like well worth it. But just a strong show overall.
Yeah, so we'll talk about Forbidden Door, and I'm sure we'll talk about some other stuff that'll lead into some other stuff. But I had this in my notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the show. Obviously, not as good as last year's Forbidden Door, but I think that was a tough hill to try to overcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said to the group of people that were there watching, and I don't come right out and say it, but Kenny's not my guy. I get that Kenny's a really good wrestler, maybe one of the best in the world, and Will Ospreay I'll never get, and I begrudgingly admit he's one of the best wrestlers in the world, and I'm like, it's going to be a very good match, but I just have no emotional investment in it, and goddamn if they didn't get me, right?
Yeah.
They got me with their work. Ospreay bled a bunch, and it's always a good thing where you bleed, and as much of your blood is all over your opponent as it is you. That means you did a good one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you mentioned the Tiger Driver 91. That has the entire world up in arms, and with doffing my John Cena cap to Virtual Pros, I did not have the Natural Born Killers theme set up for underneath this, and I'm not going to go on a rant about safety police people because it's going to come up again maybe a little bit later on. But I saw it, and I freaked out. Everybody in the room freaked out when Kenny got hit with the Tiger Driver 91. And that one move has probably been the most overanalyzed thing in all of professional wrestling in the last 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I said I had a hot take about it. And Fuad Ramses, I don't know if he listened to the show, but he's definitely a follower. He tweeted at me the offices for the Jacksonville Jaguars, which I assume are also the AEW offices. So I actually put pen to paper, and I wrote a letter to Kenny Omega and mailed it to those offices to see what will happen. But obviously, you want to know my hot take on it?
I do.
All right. I thought it was really cool. And if you watch it, because there's the TV angle, and then obviously everyone has cell phone camera angles of it,
Mm.
And the more different angles I see, the more I could tell how quickly Kenny got his shoulder and arm in there to kind of help break the fall. Now, listen, I'm not saying that this was not a dangerous move. It was a very dangerous move. But any move in professional wrestling has the chance to be dangerous and cause a huge problem and a risk to your health. Obviously, there's a very small room for error. You have two professionals at the very tippy top of their game, and they took a huge chance, and I would say that it paid off. I think, I did not know this. I had people let me know that Collision this week is not going to be live. Collision is taped. And they announced at the Collision tapings that are going to air this Saturday that Kenny is wrestling the following week on Collision, right?
Ooh.
Right. So he's okay, right?
Yeah.
He lived.
Yeah, he survived.
But I think everyone's overreacting. Kenny's a professional. It looked really cool, and y'all need to get over yourself. Now, in the letter, I just said, I thought you taking the Tiger Driver 91 was really cool. If anyone could do it safely, I guess it's you. You know you better than you. Keep up the good work. P.S. Tell Nick and Matt to unblock me on Twitter. And I wrote my Twitter handle on the letter. So I will know if I get unblocked by the Young Bucks if Kenny actually got my letter.
You know what? I honestly, I hope that happens. I know you'll use that to then go and get blocked again. But in the interim, can you get me unblocked by Jericho?
Let's see if this works.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if this works, before you enact whatever your master plan is,
right?
Just maybe like a little bit of a sidebar. Get me unblocked by Jericho, then do whatever you're going to do. Can I just say, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole when I got home that night, and we talked a little bit, Brett and DJ and me, and you were there, and Mr. Tim. Nice to see Mr. Tim. Congratulations, sir. But we were talking about like New Japan figs and stuff like that, and like how very little representation especially in the States there are of like Okada or Tanahashi or Ishii or whatever. So I was looking on eBay trying to find like figures, and this isn't weekly purchases, but it applies. And I couldn't really find anything I needed, but I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm a bit of a physical media guy, and I haven't bought a wrestling DVD in forever because everything's streamable. I was like, I'm going to try to find last year's Forbidden Door. And Joe, wouldn't you know it, probably due to the very complicated process of splitting profits 50-50, they didn't do a physical release of Forbidden Door last year.
Really?
If there is, nobody is selling it. Like, it's the most coveted family heirloom that there is, because there's not a single copy out there other than people on Etsy selling like what they obviously made themselves.
Yeah, sure.
Because I was like, oh, okay, you know what? I don't buy AEW DVDs. I don't buy any wrestling DVDs anymore, but I'll buy like Forbidden Door. I'll buy this year's, I'll buy last year's, but apparently they never did a physical release last year.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I'm a little sad. But yeah, overall I enjoyed the show,
Yeah.
What else you got, Joe?
So it's still with my safety police hard hat on.
Oh. Okay.
You know who else is really cool and does cool things in wrestling?
Who's that?
Why, Adam, it's Sting! Hey, I don't know who you are to tell Sting what he can or cannot do. If Sting wants to take a 630 through a table off the top rope on the outside, then you let Sting do that.
Mm-hmm.
If Sting wants to do a dive from the top rope to the outside through two tables, miss one table completely and eat shit, that's up to him to do. He's a grown-ass man. And if you live in a world where you think, one, anyone is telling Sting what to do, and two, Sting is going out there and doing things against his wishes, you are probably sadly mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Sting has become New Jack in his old age, so gradually we've all enjoyed the ride. Now, granted, listen, I don't want anyone in the world of professional wrestling to be hurt or injured. Obviously that's a loss of income. It's a loss of, quality of life. There's all these sort of things. But it's not my place to say if he wants to do this, then I say he shouldn't do it. Well, Sting's like, oh, well, Joe says I shouldn't be a maniac, so I'm going to stop being a maniac. No, Sting wants to do cool shit for my amusement. That's cool. I'm taking into consideration as a 64-year-old man that he knows what he's doing. He knows his body better than I do. I'd like to know Sting's anyway. But I don't have, like, you know, I think Sting is a really cool wrestler, but Sting is not my friend. You know, I have friends in wrestling, and I like to hope that they're okay, but most of them are very smart and take care of themselves and, you know, wrestle in a way that isn't going to make people die or whatever. And while we're talking about Sting, you know, it's been a banner week for people dunking on AEW, whether it be the Tiger Driver 91 thing from the pay-per-view, whether it be the Sting dive, or whether it be the Moxley-Ishii match. The Moxley-Ishii match was awesome. And if you watch that match, and as a wrestling fan, whether you're in the wrestling business or not, whether you've been a wrestling fan since 2013 or 1989 or 1984, don't matter when you started watching wrestling. If you watch that match and you came away feeling less than that was a great match, then wrestling has passed you by. Find a new hobby, please.
But Joe, I read somewhere on the internet that Moxley bleeds way too much and he might have a problem.
Yeah, his problem is that he's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not your thing, don't watch it. Like, if you're squeamish and you're like, oh, I don't like the sight of blood, and like I don't like death matches that are like, oh, I'm gonna stick skewers in somebody's head, or, you know, like shove the rough end of a light tube into somebody's fucking eye. I'm not gonna watch that. But Moxley bleeding all over the place is cool as shit, and I'll watch that all the time.
Yeah, are these the same people that 26 years ago, when Terry Funk at 53 years old was bleeding in every single match, were they crying? I can't believe they're making Terry Funk do this. Terry Funk is a sideshow act. Terry Funk is the worst wrestler in the world. No, because they were either in the locker room with him or they were in the crowd with me chanting for Terry Funk. Now, 26 years later, it's a problem. What about the people in the 80s, in Japan, in Texas, in Florida, when guys like Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody or Carlos Colon or Abdullah the Butcher, Dusty Rhodes, were having these wild, bloody brawls all over the place? Were they crying and saying, I can't believe they're doing this? Why? They're the worst wrestlers in the world. They're freak shows. They're sideshow acts. No, these are people who are recognized and remembered as some of the greatest wrestlers in our sport because they did this. Up until 1987, in almost every single one of his world title defenses, Hulk Hogan was bleeding like a stuck pig at Madison Square Garden against the likes of Roddy Piper, Don Morocco, Bob Orton, King Kong Bundy. The list goes on and on. Mm-hmm. Hulk Hogan was the biggest star in the world of professional wrestling. And maybe he wasn't your style of wrestler, but blood is part of professional wrestling. Have you bought in to what the World Wrestling Entertainment has made as a sanitized product over the last 15 years, that the sight of blood in 2023 makes you curl up and cry like a baby? Then you need to find a new hobby. I hear that they're showing reruns of MASH on Antenna TV. I hear on Freevee there's a channel where you could just watch Price is Right all the time. Maybe that's more your speed. Let the people who like cool shit watch wrestling. I'm not saying I'm cool, but I like cool shit. And that's what happens in wrestling. Cool shit. Like people doing crazy stunts and people bleeding all over the place.
It's because, like, I don't want to say it's a generation of people, because it's obviously there's a lot of people who are even older than us that have this mentality, but so many people think that the current WWE product is what wrestling is, and that, like, when you see old school style, hard hitting, bloody wrestling, that is some kind of freak show anomaly. But like WWE, like 2023 is like, that is what true wrestling is. And it's such a weird take where they're just so pilled of WWE, you know?
But that's the thing. I don't think it's that they're WWE pilled. I think that they're pilled that they have a memory that they've created for themselves of what old school wrestling is, and for some reason it's not this. But if they go back and watch actual old school wrestling, it is this.
Yeah. No, I get it. But like I said, most of the people that have that feeling will point to WWE and its lack of blood and be like, see, this is what you need to aspire to.
Anyway.
And there's also the bad faith stuff, speaking of Moxley versus Ishii, where the people were sharing after like a long exchange of forearms to each other's ears that went on like for 5 minutes. They had that double clothesline where they both collapsed, and they're sharing the gif of just that clothesline. And the clothesline was like, it wasn't like a super hard hitting clothesline because it was the culmination of them beating the shit out of each other for 15 minutes. So people were like, what the fuck is this? Like, not like recognizing the fact that they've just been hitting each other in the ear for the last 5 minutes. You can't win with them. You know, if somebody doesn't appreciate, like, let's say you're Mr. Tim and you don't appreciate Tomohiro Ishii, like, there's no changing that. Like, there's nothing you could do about it.
Poor Tim taking shrapnel here tonight.
I know. Well, he's the one that like says he doesn't get or appreciate or like Tomohiro Ishii.
And I'll say this, that the clip that they were showing I thought was cool as hell. It showed like fatigue, and like it told me what had happened beforehand, and then watching the match itself in context, it was still like super cool. Like, yeah. I don't know what people want from professional wrestling. These dopes who come out and criticize and say, this isn't the way it would have been 30 years ago, or in my 30 years of wrestling, or since I've been watching since 1989, nothing like this would have ever happened. Tell me what you want, and I will show it to you that happened in AEW within the last 4 years. And you are a hypocrite. You are saying these things to try to bait people into interacting with you because, I don't know, you like to be publicly shamed? I think that's the only thing that it can be. Because for every person that comes and washes your balls for the great idea that you have 3 more people coming saying what an utter dolt you are. So, listen, we don't kink shame on this network or podcast, but I think there's easier ways to go about public humiliation than making yourself look like a dum-dum.
Well, maybe that's what they're into, I guess.
Maybe that's also what they're into. Again, I don't know. I don't want to judge.
All right. Do you have anything else?
Do you? Because I got one more thing to wrap things up with.
No, go ahead. We had a lot of overlap.
All right. So, obviously the big, one of the big storylines, angle points, whatever, on Dynamite this past week is the Claudio and Eddie Kingston stuff. And John Moxley's in the middle of it. They have the backstage segment, and Moxley says, what is this all over? A bunch of Chikara BS, or no one cares about Chikara BS, right?
Yeah.
And that, energized a bunch of people. And listen, mostly a lot of people publicly, whether it be fans were like, it's great, I miss Chikara. People that were in Chikara, listen, I was in Chikara for, if I do my gazintas here, like 11 years, and I really enjoyed my time and the friendships and everything else that I cultivated there. There wouldn't be this podcast if I didn't get a chance to do Chikara. And yeah, there's a lot of bad, and you could choose to remember the bad, and you could choose to remember the good, and you could paint all of Chikara with one brush because of one person, and then maybe you could say that that one person harbored a lot of abusers, and that's true. But let's focus on the good and not the bad. And it's just funny because Moxley did wrestle in Chikara like twice, and one of them was against Hydra.
Wow. Yeah. How did Moxley overcome that disadvantage that he had with strength there?
He didn't win.
Okay. I was going to say.
I remember when he was just a guy, I'm sure Moxley got paid nothing, if nothing, next to nothing for that match in Chikara, as many people did. And that's between you and Chikara, or the person who says that Chikara isn't coming back. but he says that if a story needs to be told, it can come back, which feels like more of a threat than anything. Anywho, but when he was pitching who this Jon Moxley guy was, he's like, I don't know, he's like a cowboy or something. All right. And that's not what Moxley was, but it was very early in Moxley's career. Like, he had been wrestling less than 2 years at that point. And I don't think Moxley knew what Moxley was. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that Moxley is what Moxley is in 2023.
Yeah, no, 100%. And how funny is it? Like, obviously, you're going to be biased on this, and I am as well, but not nearly as much as you. But how crazy is it that Eddie Kingston, nowhere to be found on AEW television for months and months and months, partially because of the ROH thing, partially because of the hernia, but he comes back, and within 2 weeks, he's one of the, if not the most compelling thing on that show.
Yeah, and listen, I recently blocked like words like ratings and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But I did have somebody send to me like the literal quarter-hour breakdowns from Dynamite this past week, and the highest quarter hours was the backstage promo with Eddie Kingston and the Orange Cassidy match.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Strap him up with the Ring of Honor title, and then let him go after Max.
Again, it's interesting that you have someone who, as you mentioned, has not been on TV for months, and then just comes back within the last 2 weeks, is literally one of the hottest acts in the company, and he's going to Japan this weekend, and then he's coming back to the States for 2 weeks, and then he's going back to Japan for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just the way that things go. You know, I don't know if it was me. You know, listen, they just announced that Arthur Ashe is September 20th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eddie wins the G1, as we all know he's going to.
Of course.
He comes back. He challenges MJF for the title. They wrestle at Arthur Ashe on September 20th, and Eddie wins the belt. And again, wrestling is easy if you don't overthink it. That sounds pretty easy to me.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, when Eddie Kingston wins the AEW World title, I'm just going to go ahead and delete my Twitter.
All right.
Because I don't want to read like what anti-Eddie people have to say about him. I just won't be able to handle it. I'll be punching walls. So I just need to not see those shitty takes.
No, I've cultivated quite the timeline for myself where I don't see those bad faith people that say like, oh, Eddie's Stone Cold, but he's fat. Eddie Kingston's a phony. Eddie Kingston's this. I don't see if I see somebody tweet something other than Eddie Kingston and heart emojis, they're just immediately blocked.
Yeah, I got to work on that then.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Joe, did you know there's a premium live event this weekend?
There is.
It's Sami Zayn's kicking down to the ring. It's Kofi Kingston doing his thing. Ruby
Soho
on the show.
Bryan Danielson.
No. Is it the
Tribal Chief?
yard? Let's find out. Does Joe know the card?
Oh, a little bit of an update there, huh?
These things slip through the cracks. I don't know.
Well done, Dwicki. It was so seamless, I barely noticed it. I love it.
And thank you to Stefani for the suggestion.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you, Stefani. Well, Joe, this weekend, the World Wrestling Entertainment is putting on Money in the Bank. And according to Wikipedia, the most trusted source of all wrestling news and information, there are 7 announced matches, none of which are on the pre-show. Joe, do you know the card?
Maybe.
All right. If you know the combatants in the Money in the Bank matches, I know you're cheating, because there's no way that anybody can know like who's in these things without being either a WWE fan, which you're not, or cheating.
Well, I'm a WWE fan, just not as much as a AEW fan, an Indies fan, and everything else fan. Yeah. So let's get the easy matches out of the way, right?
Okay.
We got the Usos versus Roman and Solo.
Yep. Bloodline Civil War tag team match.
Mm-hmm. Feels like we're trying to get blood from a turnip, but you do you. We have for the Intercontinental title, Gunther taking on Matt Riddle.
Yep.
We have Cody Rhodes taking on Dominic Mysterio.
That's 3.
We have for the Ladies Tag Team Championship, Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler taking on Raquel Gonzalez and Liv Morgan.
That's correct. The returning Liv Morgan.
Okay, so that's where I wanted to get to was because I thought Liv Morgan was hurt, which is why they had stripped her and Raquel of the titles, and then I'm like, well, they're just having a rematch here. Did I miss something?
Yeah, I guess, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think Liv got hurt like maybe 2 months ago, and they did the strip, and they crowned new champions. I don't know who it was. Obviously Ronda and Shayna. But like now she's back. That's all I know.
Okay.
So she wasn't out long, so she probably wasn't it wasn't a big time injury, maybe a concussion. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Now we have Seth versus Finn Balor for the fake title, right?
Yeah, and from what I hear, that's actually had a pretty good build-up. I've seen none of it, but...
Okay. Now, for the men and women's Money in the Bank ladder matches, there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to name everybody that's in those matches. But if you tell me how many are in the match, I'm going to give it a guess.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That seems very weird. Yeah, both say 7.
Both say 7. Okay. Zelina Vega's in it because I know she won the qualifying match in Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah, okay. Starting with the women.
Okay. Trish Stratus is in it because she's been featured on TV a bunch.
She is.
Bayley is in it because she's been featured on TV a bunch.
Respectfully, she is.
Zoe Stark has been featured on TV a bunch, so I think she's in it.
She is.
And so that's 4, right?
Correct.
And I know Becky Lynch is in it, and Becky's winning it. Becky's my pick to win it.
Okay. So you're missing 1.
I thought you said there was 7 people in it.
There is.
I said Zelina, Becky,
you said
Zoe Stark,
Bayley, Trish.
Trish, 5. That's 5. And you said there was 7 people.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6. Oh, there's 6 in the women's and there's 7 in the men's. That's what.
Okay.
My bad.
You fucked me up there. I have no idea who the 6th person is.
Io Shirai, Scott.
Okay.
Why does the women's have 1 less?
Well, we're going to get into that because I know for the men's, okay?
Yeah.
So this one I might get, okay? I know Ricochet's in it, and I know Nakamura's in it because they won qualifying matches on Monday Night Raw.
Yep.
So is Damian Priest.
Correct.
I know Santos Escobar won a qualifying match on SmackDown.
Yep.
I know Logan Paul just said, I'm in the match. That's why there's 7. Because they did 6 qualifiers, and then Logan Paul just showed up on TV and said, I'm in the match too.
That's correct. Saying he's the best thing to come out of Cleveland.
Okay. But none of that matters. Because this place is... Where is this taking place, this event? It's taking place... It's not taking place in the United States.
The O2 Arena, London, England.
So it's taking place in the UK?
Yep.
Well, this Saturday, they're going to change it from the UK to the LA-K. The LA Knight. Because LA Knight is winning Money in the Bank. He's going in to cash in. Listen, they put 2 briefcases up there. He's going to cash them both in. He's going to beat Seth. He's going to beat Roman. He's going to reunify the belts to make everything that Triple H did a month ago at the Blood Oil Money show mean nothing. And I could have sat here and it didn't even matter who all these other people in the thing were. And I think I missed someone, and it don't matter who the other person is. You want to tell me who the other person is?
Butch.
Butch. Okay. Jesus Christ.
Poor Butch.
It was like Braun Strowman's hurt. That's right. Okay. I was going to say, it's like Braun Strowman busy that day? Does he have another booking?
He's on Control Your Narrative.
Yeah. But LA Knight's winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. I know they floated a fake story out there that Triple H doesn't want Logan Paul to win, and then Logan Paul on his YouTube show already has the Money in the Bank briefcase in the background. I think all these are red herrings to try to throw us off the scent, and it's going to be LA Knight victorious, as always, Money in the Bank, biggest babyface in the company. Let me talk to you. Yeah.
I can tell you, Ricochet is not winning.
Nope.
Shinsuke Nakamura, not winning.
Nope.
Santos Escobar, not winning.
Butch don't even show up.
Yeah, Butch should, good for him. Glad he got a payday. But that leaves UK Knight, Damian Priest, and Logan Paul. I think any one of those three could win it. I'm not as sold as you are that it's going to be LA Knight. I think that's just might be built up in your head a little bit that the world of the WWE sees things the way you do. I don't know. I think out of those three, LA Knight's the least likely to win it.
We will see when we rejoin here next week.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for you. I like when your silly little bits end up taking over your personality. You know,
not a bit.
It started as one.
It's true.
It's a lifestyle now.
I worked myself into a shoot. I got no problem in admitting that.
Yeah. And you say that Becky's winning the women's?
Yeah.
Who are the women's champions right now? Rhea's one, right?
Rhea is, and Asuka.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Becky's obviously, Bayley's also. I was just trying to think of who the most deserving, but I'm just so sick of seeing the same four women going after the belts nonstop. You know,
they did a tease on Raw this week with Rhea and Becky backstage, and I could see that being positioned as a marquee SummerSlam match. Mm-hmm. With Becky cashing in the title like a baby face and saying I'm going to call my shot and I want Rhea at SummerSlam and whatever it is. And then Rhea just smashes Becky in less than a minute, you know?
Yeah.
Because they've been really building Rhea up strong. And I think her beating Becky would be pretty big, especially at SummerSlam. I think that would be a really cool match. Isn't Becky still kind of sort of feuding with Zoe Stark? And Trish, kinda?
I think so. What I would it's a shame that both of the women's champions right now are heels, because I can kind of make a case for Trish Stratus winning the Money in the Bank, because I think that would be compelling TV of having her just as the gloating heel with her heater of Zoe Stark just threatening to cash in whenever she wants, you know?
Yeah.
But, it's tough when you have Rhea and Asuka as both the existing heel champions, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not watching it. Let me know how it turns out.
It's on it because it's in the UK. I think it's on at 3 in the afternoon our time, so I will not be watching it live, but I will be watching it after Collision this week.
All right. Yeah. I'll follow along on Twitter, see some GIFs.
Yes.
Good luck to your boy.
Yes. Thank you. So we should have talked about it in from this past week. Did you watch Dark Side of the Ring this week?
I did. And Joe, you know how I say there are episodes of Dark Side that I really like and episodes that are paint by numbers?
Yes.
This is a paint by numbers episode.
Oh, really?
This is an episode where it's hey, did you know that back in the 80s, people made a lot of money and spent it beyond their means, thinking it would never go away? And did you know that wrestling's a tough business for families, and sometimes you take drugs and sometimes the drugs get the best of you? Not to diminish drug abuse, but it was very much here's another tragic tale of 80s wrestlers, and there was nothing special about it. The only thing that I thought stood out from it is how he was a role model for people that were oh, there's representation. This is the first black wrestler being presented as a top guy, and then Vince Jr. basically jobbing him out or pushing him down the card. That was interesting, but the rest of it was just hey, people did drugs and it ruined their career. I think we've heard that story with different people plugged in at least once a season over the 4 years this show's been on.
Okay, I get what you're saying, and I did see most of the online discussion about this one was very positive, that they really like this episode. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle in regards to this. I always like in a Dark Side of the Ring episode where I learned something I did not know before, right? Mm-hmm. And the fact that they had access to JYD's nephew, and they had like a bunch of like pictures of JYD as a kid. They had a bunch of archival footage of like JYD going to the grade school. They had DiBiase and Jake and Duggan and guys that were with him in Mid-South on that meteoric rise. They had the pictures of JYD being DiBiase's best man in his wedding, which I did not know, you know, but then like that's one of those things where Mean Gene was the best man in Iron Sheik's wedding, you know? I love like finding out those little things, and I think like Roddy Piper was the best man in one of Flair's weddings, and you know, like to see those guys, they're on-screen rivals or whatever it is, and they're really best friends behind the scenes back in the 80s. You only have 44 minutes, and there's only so much that you could tell. So I think the show itself and the people they interviewed painted JYD in a very negative light for going to WWF, because he was the first one to leave Mid-South to go to WWF, where all the other guys that they talked to, Coco Beware, Jake, Duggan, DiBiase, they all left Mid-South as well. Yeah. So if Junkyard Dog is bad for leaving, so are you, right? Mm-hmm. JYD, huge, over, super, mega baby face. Like they did. I don't think they stress enough that when they did that hair cream angle with the Freebirds, that JYD sold out the Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. 70,000 people came to see JYD get revenge on Michael PSAs, right? Yeah. Huge. One of the biggest stars. But then you get the information in there about the racial stuff that was going on as well. You know, obviously there's the story that Teddy Long tells, and they didn't get Bill Watts on the record, but he said that it was complete fantasy. And, you know, JR is like, the only color the cowboy liked was green, which, you know, there's a lot more proof out there that kind of disputes that fact, right? I think they glossed over too quickly of all the folks that they brought in to try to replace the Junkyard Dog in immediate succession that all washed out. You know, George Wells and Tony Atlas and the Snowman and this one and that one and this one, right? And then you get the narrative that he comes into WWF and he's jobbed out. And that's not what happens, right? As someone who, I mentioned them last week and I'll mention them here again, who is listening and watching Our Vantage Point, the OVP podcast, every Friday, they release their watch along of an episode of Championship Wrestling. They started back in 1982. They're about to hit December of 1985 this week. And from the time that JYD came in, he's like the number 2 babyface right behind Hogan. When JYD comes in, it's literally Hogan's number 1, but Hogan's not on TV or doing the house shows even because he has Japanese commitments. Sergeant Slaughter's still the number 1 babyface. JYD comes in as a surprise to team with Sergeant Slaughter, and then a month later, Slaughter's gone, and JYD's the number 2 babyface. And JYD don't lose on TV. JYD is feuding with Terry Funk. Terry Funk, who is like about to feud with Hulk Hogan, and for the first like 2 years, it's more or less like whoever's going to feud with Hogan next is feuding with JYD. So if Hulk Hogan's number 1, and that's a big number 1 in 1985, 1986, JYD, you know, being number 2, that's not a bad spot to be in, right?
Yeah, they paint the picture that because he wasn't world champion, he was a failure.
But,
you know, like, and I don't agree with that, obviously, but, you know,
yeah.
like I bought that LJN carrying case that has like 5 wrestlers on it, and like he's one of them. You know,
Yeah.
it's like him, Big John Studd, Piper, Hogan, and like Macho or something like that. And those are the only guys on there. And they even made the comment that he made like 6 figures per quarter based on his action figures. You know, so at least initially, like, he was a top guy. You don't have to be the world champion. And it wasn't an era where people dropped the belt every other month, you know?
Right. It was a completely different era. And from 84 until he leaves WWF in late 88, he's like positioned near the top. Now, granted, by the time it hits late 87, early 88, Warrior's in and he's being groomed for that spot. Macho Man babyface turns, so now Macho Man's going up to that spot. So just through osmosis, JYD is slowly falling down the card. But like all of 84, all of 85, all of 86, he's the number 2 babyface. Making, 6 figures off just his dolls.
Yeah.
And they don't, they're like, well, this was terrible. He should have stayed in Mid-South when everybody else was leaving Mid-South immediately after JYD.
Yeah, it's just he was the first one. Like Vince Jr. picked up a stack of index cards with phone numbers, and JYD's at the top.
Now, the one thing that I teased it last week, okay? And they didn't mention it on the show, but it was very interesting when they're talking about JYD's death, and it's a very tragic death. Of course, he's in the throes of drugs, and there's the story where he gets in the nephew gets in the car, and there's just puke all over the car, just from his body just giving up on him from doing drugs, right? Mm. And they show the picture of JYD holding the baby, and in that picture, JYD is wearing an ECW t-shirt.
Okay, I didn't notice that.
Okay, because that weekend, JYD did like a Legends segment at whatever the ECW pay-per-view was that weekend. When JYD comes out to do the Legends segment, it's just like, oh, we're in New Orleans, so let's bring out some of the greatest names from New Orleans, Louisiana wrestling, and JYD was one of the guys. JYD comes out, and he's got like a bandage on his head, and like he's all fucked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because backstage, he got into an altercation with New Jack over drug money, and New Jack beat the shit out of him. That's a huge story.
Yeah.
And they don't even mention it. They show a picture of him wearing an ECW t-shirt that he probably got at that pay-per-view. The picture that was probably like the last known photo taken of JYD. And they don't mention that story.
And it's not like if you're a loyal watcher of Dark Side of the Ring, and there's lots of people who love that show who've never watched a lick of wrestling, it's not like you have to reestablish who New Jack is because they already did an entire episode on him, you know? That does seem odd. I will say that like my biggest oh shit moment, and like not in a good way, like was when his nephew was at JYD's grave and he's showing the picture, and then they pan over and they're like, and here's his daughter's grave. And I'm like, oh shit, because obviously if you didn't know, and I didn't, like that came out of left field, you know, because you knew she was still young. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that sucked.
Yeah.
But I will say I didn't know, like, JYD did look like $1 billion when he was in Mid-South, like, because
he looked like the coolest motherfucker around.
Yeah, 1,000%. Like my memories of JYD is him being a big fat piece of shit in WCW, you know, and like some of the later WWF stuff. But just seeing him in action, just built like a brick shit house with the awesome sunglasses and like, you know, the little bit of the fro, like he looked so damn cool.
Yeah, and like I said, that was wrestling that we did not get in my area. That was wrestling that happened before I was watching wrestling. But that's stuff that I've watched, you know, in the last like 10 years. And it's great stuff, man.
Yeah. It's a shame it didn't exist, but if it did,
we'll
watch some of it.
I'm going to put that on the list. 82 Mid-South, 90 Memphis, Sid ECW.
All right.
I might have, you know what? Once we're done with this WCW stuff, I might put a poll up on the Patreon of what my assignments to you are going to be next. Let the listeners vote on it.
Okay. All right. I feel like a lot of them are going to spite me and pick the oldest thing possible, but we'll see.
So next week is Adrian Adonis, right?
Yeah.
Not going to tip my hand or spoil or go with what the angle I think they're going to go with. But we didn't mention it, but they did a bit on Rampage this past week with QTV and the Acclaimed, where the lady in QTV, whose name I don't know.
It's Harley Cameron. Show some damn respect, Joe.
And I knew you would know. She comes out and she puts the move. She tries to put the moves on Bowens. Yep. And Bowens is like, listen, lady, I don't know if you know my deal or see what's going on with my gear, but I'm gay. And he then gets a positive he's gay chant in professional wrestling in 2023, and that was a really super cool moment. Mm-hmm. And it was a moment where we as wrestling fans can all pretend that all of wrestling and all of wrestling fans in 2023 is this way, even if it was just for a minute and a half or 2 minutes. But obviously, as that clip is making the rounds, then the clip is making the rounds of the Adrian Adonis gimmick change in World Wrestling Entertainment in late 85 into early 86, where he goes to being the adorable one, and just to see how different wrestling was 1986 versus 2023.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it. I mean, but we'll watch it.
It's going to be interesting. Interesting. How about that?
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into some phone calls.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey there, Adam, Joe, and it's the other JB here. So we had Forbidden Door this weekend. Super fun. Got a lot of fun music in there, from the Death Rider theme to Final Countdown, of course.
I forgot about that.
Super fun to get those. So this week I was kind of running around my head on who to ask it about matches for. So earlier this week, actually today, I went through my spreadsheet of matches that, you know, I had come across on lists and such that I've compiled to look at. And I went to go watch Eddie Guerrero versus Otani from Starrcade 95. And I did not realize this when I put it on, but it was also the Starrcade where there was the Championship Cup of World Wrestling, whatever the conglomeration of words are, between New Japan and WCW. And so it was just kind of wild to see that, you know, how different such an event is 30 years on, comparing it to Forbidden Door, just in the way in which different wrestlers are perceived. And Eddie Guerrero having that babyface backstage segments, you know, not seeing him as the Eddie that people around my age really know him as. So yeah, it was very interesting to see. And I was trying to wrap my head around who to ask for recommendations for, but then who pops up but Sting? 30 years on, he's still doing it. So I'll ask y'all for some recommendations about the Stinger.
First, before we get going, I just want to say, other JB, that was a heinous attack on Hook, and you should be ashamed of yourself. But can we just talk real quick about Danielson coming out to Final Countdown?
Oh,
and how,
my God,
how ridiculous that was. I wasn't watching Ring of Honor, but I've seen some matches here and there, and I obviously know that he came out to it. So I appreciate how much he appreciated having that music. You know, you saw the expression on his face, and he even said in the presser afterwards that, like, he was having a shitty day, like something in his personal life, and when he heard that music, like, you could tell he had a genuine giant smile on his face coming out. And just anytime you have the crowd like singing along to something that's not Judas, I loved it. I hate the fact that these aging, like, completely irrelevant musicians that are in their 70s or 80s or whatever are charging so much for the rights to the music. And I get somebody else owns it now, whatever. I don't know the details, but you would rather not have your music played and stick to your guns of having an absurdly high per usage amount than maybe coming down on it and being like, hey, here's a whole new generation of people that will hear my song on a weekly basis and appreciate it. Makes no sense to me.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But people are stubborn, and people think what they have is gold, and they think people are willing to pay for it. But that's how you become forgotten.
Yeah. Like, I'd rather have 100% of nothing than 20% of something. That's
yeah, exactly.
You know? But yeah, I guess like Khan said that like it costs 6 figures to get that song used once, and they can have it in the replays and like if there is a physical release, which I don't think there will be, but like we ain't hearing that again on like Dynamite, which is sad.
Right.
And I also posed the question to you in the room: bigger AEW original music pop, Danielson with Final Countdown or CM Punk during the dog collar match with AFI? I still think it might be the AFI song, but let us know.
Was it Tim or someone else who said that the AFI one doesn't count because they didn't have the metal barricades for people to poorly clap along in time?
It might have been DJ.
Okay,
but I know Brett agreed with me that the CM Punk's was the better one. I mean, we're comparing an A+ and an A, you know.
Yeah,
so it's like.
2 Phil-pilled people thought Phil's thing was the best. I'm very surprised by this.
I guess you're right, yeah. I do acknowledge that Danielson's the best wrestler in the world. And I haven't said that about CM Punk since his first run, or his 434-day run.
The only person who says that about CM Punk is CM Punk. Everybody says that about Bryan Danielson. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be recommending Sting matches, huh?
Yeah.
So I love Sting. Sting is awesome. I could be here all day naming Sting matches. Sting is a low-key awesome wrestler who doesn't get the credit for the number of awesome matches that he had, you know? I could, you know, I'm going to try to limit myself to 3, yes, right?
Please. Yep.
You've got Falls Count Anywhere on the Gulf Coast, Beach Blast 92 against Cactus Jack. You have Super Brawl 91, Sting and Luger taking on the Steiner Brothers.
Okay.
And I think, wasn't there like a crazy one in AEW that I could mention? How about this? I'll say from whatever the pay-per-view was, Sting and Darby Allin against Double J and Jay Lethal.
I thought you were going to go with the cinematic match in the warehouse against Team Taz.
Oh, that sucked. But like Sting is awesome, man. Like go look up any like Sting versus Vader match, and they're all awesome. Sting versus Flair matches. Sting just meshed with so many people in that time frame. The time limit draw match with Flair from '88 at the Clash of Champions. And I know I said I'd limit myself to 3, but I'm at like 5 now, right? Mm-hmm. Sting's awesome, man. Like Sting don't have a ton of bad matches, you know?
Yeah. All right, cool. Thanks, other JB.
Yes, and everyone's call quality should match that of other JBs. Y'all are slipping. Next call.
Hey guys, it's Ben Pasco, and wow, what a week in wrestling. You got Forbidden Door, Fight Forever's out. I'm sure someone got canceled on Twitter, wasn't paying attention, which leads to my question this week. Would you rather eat out of your butt or poop out of your mouth? Thank you. I'll hang up and listen. Bye.
Eat out of your butt. So if I'm eating out of my butt, am I also pooping out of my butt?
That's what I think. So
I mean, then I'm like, I don't care what's going on. That's just a all-purpose take in, get rid of section. I'd be fine with that, you know?
Right. Because, you know, obviously with this either or situation would mean, well, if I pick this, then isn't the other thing true? But obviously one would think if you're eating in your mouth, you're pooping out of your mouth. If you're eating out of your butt, you're pooping out of your butt.
Yeah, and I don't have taste buds in my butt, so...
Exactly.
You know, yeah, I think that's an easy one. I'll just take care of all that business. I'll import and export down there.
Exactly. Coming from a master importer-exporter in his own right.
This is true. Thank you. But yeah, I think that's an easy one, but I do like those questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the call, Ben. Next call.
Hey, guys, it's the Wiki. With John Moxley saying on Dynamite, well, asking Eddie on Dynamite, quote, "Who cares about some Chikara BS?" What is the weirdest character that could possibly end up on Dynamite from Chikara, and why is it Sharecropper?
Oh,
I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, Joe, you're going to have to give me the Cliff Note version of what this Sharecropper is.
The Sharecropper was a guy whose mask was an ear of corn.
Okay.
And he would put fake tanner on to give himself a farmer's tan to wrestle.
Of course.
And he was like the sidekick, if you will, or like the number 2 with Larry Sweeney in like 05, 06, 07.
All right. I don't know why I asked, but that makes complete sense. All
there
right.
You go.
So we're getting the Chikara invasion, right? We're getting Ultra Mantis Black coming in soon. Maybe whoever we can get under those masks, for the colony. I don't know.
The weirdest gimmick in Chikara would probably have to be anyone, and it casts a wide net because there's more than one. Anybody who time travel was part of their thing. But that being said, I know he's under Impact contract, but I just think whole cloth, no explanation, mixed martial Archie is the way to go.
100%. Just do the entire story. No, don't even do the storyline. Just have him show up one week as mixed martial Archie.
Yep.
Then have Archibald Peck, and then have that completely different guy, mysterious and handsome stranger show up, and just don't tell anybody, what's going on. I like it. All right.
Just redo it. It's been long enough that people have forgotten what it was,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Yes, thank you for your call. Next call.
Hello, gentlemen. Kevin here. All right, so we'll do my stupid weekly question, and I noticed that we're asking what Moxley should watch from Chikara, some of that Chikara BS. So I think that Eddie should bring Mox the tape, a DVD, a streaming thing, from Jerry's, and say, "Hey, Mox, I was champion in Chikara. I'm going to have you watch one of my title defenses. Claudio, why don't you come over here too? And you can see, that I know how to work." And Eddie will play himself defeating Sarah Del Rey. He'll just keep staring over Claudio. It's like, "You got a problem with this? Huh? Oh, it looks like I got it pretty bad on that one. Oh, does that bother you at all, Claudio?" And just works the mind game that way. I think that'd be very interesting. All right, so question. I couldn't watch NXT Live on Tuesday. Yeah, I still do. I know. So Wednesday, I just kind of fast-forwarded for who I like. All right, let me watch these ones. Let me watch what I like here. I've given Gallus a chance. I don't care. I've given Baron Corbin, 5-7 years? I don't care. I like Carmelo. Don't care about Baron. So, I got through the 2 hours in probably 30 minutes. However, I won't be watching Money in the Bank live. I'll be watching it later on at night, but I will probably watch the whole thing. I want to let the story build. I want to suspend my disbelief. I want to enjoy it as if I'm watching it live. But then I see Collision is taped anyway, so I'll probably fast forward to whatever I want to see. So my question is, if you're not watching it live, how do you decide what you're going to watch and what you're not going to watch? Is it people that have already earned a faith and love and enjoyment from you? Is it kind of like Brett and DJ over We Need Wrestling? They see cage match reviews and they're like, "Oh, I should watch that match. It's getting high rankings." Is it kind of a mix of it? Is it just when your mood for the day? And if you're in a crappy mood, you skip most of the show. If you're in a good mood, you might watch the whole thing. What is your process for quickly watching a show when it is taped? Gentlemen, I hope you have a good 4th of July weekend. Barbecues, cookouts, whatever. If anyone has any gluten-free buns, gluten-free pasta salad, let me know. Invite me over. Talk to you later. Bye.
I think we touched on this earlier, that I watch so very little wrestling anymore other than Dynamite, where I'm not fast forwarding through 80% of it. Raw, I'm at the point where like I have to hear amazing things about a segment for me to give it 2 seconds of my attention. Like I fast forward through all of it. SmackDown, maybe a Roman promo, like that Bloodline Usos thing from last week, but like very little of any of their product do I give it any attention. And Rampage has been that way recently, where if it's not like, hey, here's Orange Cassidy or here's like an Eddie Kingston promo or maybe just, whatever, the couple guys or girls that I like, Rampage is getting a fast forward job from me a lot lately too. So I've been doing a lot of fast forwarding with wrestling. I just completely stopped recording Impact. Like I'm not missing anything there. But Joe, I know you're a big YouTube guy.
Yeah, so I am a big YouTube guy. I do my best to avoid spoilers, of course, when it comes to taped stuff. I will watch it off the DVR.
Wink.
And I'll kind of fast forward through things, and I'll be like this week. Whatever your thoughts on Rampage is, I'm absolutely watching Claudio versus Commander, right?
Absolutely.
That match is going to be awesome. But I'm going to skim through it, and I'm going to see some bits and drips and drabs and everything else like that. And obviously Kevin is mostly talking about taped stuff or not having the time to watch stuff. But I even mentioned before, my plan on Saturday, because I do have shit going on, is I'm going to watch Collision first. Hopefully if I can coordinate watching Collision live as it airs, and then watch Money in the Bank afterwards. But if I'm, things get done early and I happen to be home, I'll like, all right, I want to see LA Knight win the briefcase.
Yeah.
So I'll just zip to that match. I don't have a care about a lot of the other matches on there. Like, I know it's hot and it's a thing or whatever, but I don't have a zero care for Cody versus Dominic. I think Matt Riddle is a bad person, so I'm sure Gunther will beat the shit out of him. But I don't know. It's like a work and beat the shit out of him. It's not a real beating the shit out of him,
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think Riddle can defend himself against a shoot beat the shit out of, which is sad.
Yeah. But it's definitely I do skim through stuff. It's AEW, it's WWE. I don't watch Impact, unfortunately, unless I see something big come up, and it's just stuff that hasn't been interesting me much lately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and a show being taped doesn't really sway whether or not I want to watch it or not. I don't think Collision being taped really makes me want to see it any less. Unless somebody said, "Oh, it was a dog shit show," and somehow I got, I heard about that, then maybe I'd be like, okay, I'm less likely to watch it in its entirety. But being taped doesn't really matter to me much.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your call. I don't know. Glad you're trying to watch your weight with gluten stuff, but I tell you, nothing's better than white bread. Yum a dum dum. Delicious. Anyway, it's pink button time, everyone. It's Young Ed.
Hey, Joe and Adam. It's Ed. Hey, Joe. I said I was going to call in and tell you the story because it's a lot to type out in a tweet, so this is easier for me. Today is my birthday, which is no big deal. I'm 19.
19.
So I don't know. Who gives a shit? No big deal at all. But it reminded me when you tag John Thorne in that to tell me happy birthday, that John Thorne is part of my funniest birthday story of all time. Pat and Jonah had a party for me one year, and they got a bunch of canes, chicken. And it was delicious, and Dan, Dr. Dan and Dom and a bunch of everybody is there. Alberti, everybody's there. At Pat's house, we're having a real good time. And somebody says, ask a wrestling question, right? And I answered it. And Jonah says, see, that's why we could never do the show without Ed, because Ed is the only one that knows about wrestling. And seated right beside me during this is John Thorne, who on my birthday says, no, you guys could do the show without him. It doesn't even leave it at that. Then he proceeds to talk about how the show would be better, and actually my social media presence is really off-putting, and it probably does damage to the show, and I love that. I think that's very funny. It's seated right next to me on my birthday. He told my co-host how they should fire me from my own show. Okay, bye!
I would expect nothing less from Thorne.
It does sound on brand to him, yeah.
Yes. I'll say this. Would you rather that or him have slapped you, which used to be Ed and John Thorne's relationship, that anytime that Thorne would see Ed, he would slap him?
So, like, mental abuse or physical abuse.
Right.
Pick poison.
That's right.
All right.
All right, so Ed calls back again.
Of course he does.
Hey, Joe and Adam, it's Ed. I'm going to call back one more time, probably when I'm driving twice. So there will be a third call, Adam. But I just want to let everybody knows this, that Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay did a Tiger Driver 91 in their match, which I'm sure, Adam, you know it is. Classic, Japanese move.
Of course.
And it's made people's brains melt to the point where I saw a tweet where someone said that stuff like that makes them worried about the future of labor solidarity. And labor solidarity is part of like solidarity unionism, where you don't necessarily have a government or union reps, like workers unite, and they formulate strategies, and they all do this on their own, right? And a wrestling move made someone worried about the future of that, because they did a wrestling move.
Mm-hmm.
We've reached peak discourse. I'm very happy. This has been a great week. I'm very happy. Okay, bye.
Ed always is a big fan of seeing terrible takes on Twitter and just being like so pleased that they're there, and it justifies like his usage of Twitter. He's like, I'll never quit this app.
Yeah, Ed certainly has a knack for finding the absolute dregs and worst of Twitter.
Yeah, he has an opposite of your timeline as far as curation goes. He's managed to filter out all the good takes, so he can just expose himself with the bad ones.
I think he has alerts set for people being stupid on Twitter.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, Ed does call back one more time, as promised.
Hey, Joe and Adam, it's Ed. 5 a.m. I'm on my way to Chicago. Home of One Bill Phil.
Who?
I left early because I want to stop and get breakfast. So I'm really excited. But this is like my first concert in like a big stadium. Like I grew up going like Warped Tour, but like then dumb little like punk shows in front of like 200 people. I've never really been to a giant show like this before. Well, I guess like 14 years ago I saw Aerosmith, but I don't remember any of it. We partied really hard before it, because like, it's Aerosmith. I don't know. It's my mom's favorite band, so I just went and saw them with people. It was fun, I guess. But, you guys ever been to like a big giant show at an arena like this? I wanted to go see Foo Fighters and Rise Against a couple years ago. Nobody wanted to go with me, so that would have been my first one. But yeah, I don't know. Like I know I'll love it because it's twice, and it's Nayeon, Jaeyoung, Momo, Sana, Gio, Mina, Taeyong, Gayun, and Chewy, and like that'll be great. But I don't know that it's going to be very big. I don't know what to expect. Yeah, you ever been to like a big concert in a big place like this? This is going to be fucking wild. CM Punk sold this place out twice. Tell me when he's telling lies. Okay, bye.
How many times did CM Punk sell that place out?
Well, it was the tarped off version of the building that Ed's saying, but sure, he did it 2 times.
Oh, twice?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Biggest concert you've ever been to, I think was the crux of that question.
Yeah, like have you ever gone to a big show like this at a big building?
I've never been to like a stadium show, because I've said many times before I'm not a huge like music guy, so like 90% of my shows are either at the whatever the current name is of the FU Arena in Wilkes-Barre, or like Montage Mountain. But sometime around like 2002 or 2003, I did security for Rolling Rock Town Fair, which is like a festival, in Latrobe.
Okay.
But that was like it was kind of like Ed mentioned, Warped Tour, kind of like that, but like it was like I think Korn headlined it, and like it was bands like that. So I worked security for that, but I basically like watched the show. So because that was just a giant Woodstock like field, that was probably my largest attended show I've ever been to, but it wasn't like a big venue, so to speak.
So the biggest venue that I saw anyone at was seeing Pearl Jam at Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
I don't even remember what year it would have been, but I've seen, so that's like the biggest indoor, but I've seen Pearl Jam and Foo Fighters at outdoor shows that are much bigger. Like I saw Foo Fighters at Giant Stadium. I saw Pearl Jam like at 3 different huge outdoor festivals, like way more people than were at Madison Square Garden, which Madison Square Garden was sold out. But then, like, even seeing, like, technically just the sheer number of people, like, I saw Bush and the Toadies at Harvey's Lake, and there was, like, tens of thousands of people there in, like, 1996 or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
It just so happens that, like, most of the concerts that I, like, and I saw Foo Fighters when they came here the one time to the Wilkes-Barre Arena. It was like a stopover date that they added at the last minute. Whatever the small theater in Reading is, my wife and I saw Ringo Starr and the All-Star Band there.
Okay.
But those are like, it's 8,000 people. It's, 7,000 people, whatever it is. It just so happens, like I said, a lot of the folks that I like that I saw were at like big outdoor festivals for them.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can't tell you the last time I was at it's probably been for me for the last concert well over 10 years. And it was probably at Montage, and I don't remember what it was, but like it's been forever. I do wish I kept tickets though, because I saw tons of bands like when I was in college. Like I feel like I was going to Montage or the Wachovia every other weekend, but I don't remember who I saw.
I do now. See, I do keep my tickets.
Yeah, no, that's why I mention it.
Because I have, I have my ECW tickets and stuff, but I have like, as I'm looking through them here, bunch of Raws, bunch of ECWs. Who's this? World Wrestling. That's the TV taping. And now the other problem is like I just by having them doesn't mean that they're like in good condition.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have my Pearl Jam at like whatever outdoor theater I went to go see them. I have like I went to go see Vanilla Ice at Tinks.
Yeah.
So like I have stubs like that, but like it was printed on a piece of glossy paper 25 years ago, so a lot of them are very faded.
Yeah, that's another problem with that. Well, what was your first concert? Do you remember?
The Toadies Bush concert at Harvey's Lake.
I saw Bush open up for somebody at the Wachovia. Like that might have been my last concert, and even that was probably like 8-9 years ago. Mm-hmm. I think they opened for like Shinedown or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's pretty funny.
But they were great live. My first show was Ozzy Osbourne at Montage Mountain.
Yeah,
he was on the Retirement Sucks tour in '94. So I just remember that was my first concert ever at like 14.
Yeah, there's thoughts of maybe going to see Alice Cooper and Rob Zombie at Montage this September, but we'll see when we get there.
Yeah, you're bringing the kid, aren't you?
Yeah, that's the thought.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks, Ed. Ed, I've joked before. I hope you enjoy Twice. He seems to be enjoying it in the couple clips I've seen on Twitter. So Be safe. Get home safely. We have a big contract that you need to live up to. So I need you to get home, get back to the studio.
Exactly.
But is that it for calls?
Yeah, that's it for calls. Obviously we have our TeePublic store. Nothing's on sale right now, but if there's a sale, keep an eye out. You can make purchases through our eBay affiliate link. That's all around, whether the show post here over at oddswrestling.com. When you click on links to various merchants on this site and make a purchase, this can result in the site earning a commission. Affiliate programs and affiliations include, but are not limited to, the eBay Partner Network.
Yeah. And things that also, I'm sorry, I was going to say things that aren't associated with eBay Affiliate Network either are Longbox Heroes After Dark, Final Wrestling Place, We Need Wrestling, Porch Talk, Viewer's Choice, Indie Wrestling Guide, Wings on Wings, and Hayabusa. Sorry, I stepped over whatever you were going to say.
I was going to plug the Patreon.
Go for it.
Patreon.com/@oddswrestling. I know we just had the interview go up this week with myself and Mantis. We'll have the movies and old wrestling reviews going up here in the near future when there's weekends when they're not pay-per-views. Like I said, we have the interview with Young Ed coming up for July, and I'll have a better idea on who or what August can be after the LVAC show on the 9th of July at the Mahoning Drive-In. Matches are starting to get announced for that. I'm looking forward to seeing folks there. I know they had tweeted out to bring your dog to the show, but I say if you have a cat, bring your cat too. I jokingly said no cats, trying to be funny, and some people may have taken offense. I would bring my cat with me, but I don't think he would travel well.
Mm-hmm.
So those shows are coming up. Trying to think what else. Social media stuff, whatever. You follow us, you don't follow us. Tweet the show, tell people about the show. I do appreciate the word of mouth that the show is and has been getting. Shared by friends and listeners and acquaintances alike. It never ceases to amaze me of how many people listen to this show and who listens to this show when they tell me, like, oh, I listened to the show this week, and I'm like, you listen? All right, well, I got something better to do, but I guess, this is on that list, which makes me feel good,
Yeah. That is, but now I'm kind of intrigued, but...
Yeah. Well, we could talk and we talk. I don't know if it would mean anything to you, but it'll mean, whatever. And also, IWTV, Jerry's Internet Wrestling Emporium, use the promo code @odds. New subscribers get nothing other than a little message to Jerry to tell him that you came to him from us. One of the things that I enjoy about going bowling every Thursday before we do the show is that I get a chance to see Jerry at the bowling alley and catch up on what's going on. They got a big announcement coming up this week on July 4th. It's going to be a state of the IWTV title address with the new board of directors, person in charge, governing body, whatever. And all I could say is, my friend. That's it.
Oh, okay. I thought that was my friend, comma, something else.
Nope.
Okay. I know nothing about that state of the IWTV guide, or not IWTV title, but I hope it's like, hey, we're going to put it on somebody that will defend it and actually be like a household indie name again, like it was a couple years ago.
Let's just say those things are going to be addressed.
All right, great. I remember when it was like the top indie people had that belt, and it's like, I know who the champ is now, but that's not through any kind of credit to him, just through people bitching about him.
That'll all be addressed.
Excellent. All right, anything else, Joe?
Nope, it's time for your favorite part of the show.
Excellent. Some might cost a little. Some might cost a lot. But I'm the $100 Vansky. And your figures will be bought. All right, Joe, I have a relatively big week. I'm just going to do a couple quick ones, and I'm going to throw it over to you in case you have something. But earlier today, and thank you to the couple people who reached out to me to give me the Iggy, but there was a pre-order for the Target exclusive Samoa Joseph figure. I pre-ordered that. Did the old pre-order that, add another item to the cart, get the free shipping, submit the order, then cancel the extra item. Works every time. And also, speaking of Target exclusives, I found in the wild, because I aspire to one day be the Michael Jordan of Johnny Lawrence figures, but I bought a Cobra Kai Mighty Morphin Power Ranger, Johnny Lawrence as a Black Ranger figure, which is actually a Target exclusive. It's him as a Black Ranger, and I looked at the box. It actually says Black Boar Ranger, which is something that I don't know what that is, but if it's got the boar in it, it's got to be cool.
Ooh, I think, if I'm not mistaken, from the original Power Ranger, or not the original, because I know the original Power Rangers were all lions.
Yeah.
There was a Power Rangers, and I'm sure Ed is listening to this on his way home from Twice and is freaking out because he knows what iteration of Power Rangers this was. But I do recall either the second or third one that got released in America. They were all different animals, and the Black Ranger animal Zord was a boar.
Okay. So yeah, that's like, I'm not like, I watched the original Power Rangers, like the original US incarnation when I was a kid, but that was it. This was more because it was like, hey, I love Cobra Kai, I love Sensei Lawrence, and here's a unique mashup figure that's exclusive to Target. It was like a perfect storm of like confluence of stuff, you know? So I grabbed that. What about you, Joe? Did you get anything?
Well, I mentioned the full story on Longbox Heroes After Dark this week, but around a bunch of home repairs this week, I had to buy a new flush master for my toilet.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Interesting. Fascinating stuff.
Listen, this is, perils of being an old man homeowner. What are we going to tell you?
I'm an old man homeowner, and I'm mentioning like toys and fun stuff.
Well, I didn't buy nothing for me this week. I'm having a yard sale and put a bunch of shit out on the lawn, and it's either getting bought or it's not coming back in the house, you know?
Yeah. One other thing I got, and I saw this earlier in this week, and I was like super excited, like way more excited for a toy than I should be, but I was like, I cannot wait for this to go up for pre-order, and luckily, I think the next day it did. But it is the third in the series of mashups of Transformers and G.I. Joe. And this one is Soundwave, where he transforms into the Dreadnought Jeep. And it comes with Zartan and Lady Zartan. Do you see this, Joe?
No.
You didn't?
I did not see these.
Look at my Twitter. It's like 2 tweets down. I think it's the only thing I tweeted about yesterday.
Well, first I have to unblock you.
Just goes to show how much you pay attention to my very limited tweeting, Joe. So.
Well, Adam, you may have been aware I've been soft banned this week. Because I tweeted all those birthday wishes out to Ed, and then I got a 3-day soft ban where I'm not allowed to like or see certain tweets. I had people that were tagging me and stuff and replying to me that I was not seeing. So.
Well, first of all, stop acting up on Twitter.
I saw the I saw the backpacks.
No, yeah, a little bit further. A little bit further.
I don't
know why you click. There it is.
Oh, this.
Yeah. How awesome is that?
All right, that is pretty awesome.
And not only obviously do I collect Soundwave figures, but I had that Dreadnought. I think it's called like the Thunder Machine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dreadnought Thunder Machine. So that was one of the figures that are the G.I. Joes that I had back in the day. And I have to ask you this question. So obviously, massive fan of G1 Transformers. I'm a fan of G.I. Joe, not as much as Transformers, but it was like my number 2 favorite toy as a kid. The previous mashups that they did in this series, these Hasbros, they did Megatron transforms into a Hiss tank. I have that.
Okay.
I obviously will have this Soundwave transforms into the Dreadnought Jeep. The other one that exists is Bumblebee, who transforms into just a generic green G.I. Joe Jeep.
Nope.
Now, I originally said that as well. I was like, A, Bumblebee sucks. B, it's just a forgettable Jeep. It's like nothing fancy. And it's the baby faces.
Right.
But I love Transformers and I love G.I. Joe, and I have 2 out of the 3 of them that exist.
I could make the argument not to get this.
How?
Because the Thunder Machine with the G.I. Joes came with the Dreadnought exclusive figure Thrasher, and this does not. Thrasher is the one who drove this, not Zorana or Zartan.
Yeah, but you have to understand, I give zero fucks about the accuracy of that. I care about the left side of the box. I'm a Soundwave guy, dude.
All right.
You give me a Soundwave where he's on that purple iconic packaging with that logo, I'm all over it. Like, and I've even made rules in the past that Soundwave needs to transform into a cassette deck for me to count it, but I'm breaking those rules for this thing.
And I do like in this fourth picture that I have up here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could tell right here. Zartan is wearing the mask that comes in his backpack for his Master of Disguise thing. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I am super pumped for that. Honestly, I might buy a set, like, because these are general releases. Like, they went up on Hasbro Pulse and now Entertainment Earth and eventually Amazon. Like the Bumblebee one I've seen on clearance, so I might wait for a clearance on that. But I might buy a second one of that Soundwave just so I can open one. That's how
I say no only because Bumblebee sucks.
He does.
But I get where you want to have completionists.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's only like, all right, they've done 3 figures over the first one came out like a year and a half ago. So it's like, okay, it's 3 figures over the course of a year and a half. I can keep up with this pace, you know? All right, what else you get, Joe?
Well, literally right before we started recording, I had asked Adam for some assistance here. I briefly told the story on one of the other shows in the last week or two, and I told Adam off air, but I'll tell the story here. So my little nephew is super into wrestling right now, but he's only into the toys. He likes watching clips of wrestling. He likes watching like Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, like compilations, highlight things, you know, right?
Yeah.
So at my dad's house, there's all my old wrestling figures, which is just like a hodgepodge of like super played with, maybe broken, maybe clicking, Hasbro's, Jacks, Titantron, stuff like that, you know, and he likes playing with them, but he likes Hulk Hogan, he likes Ultimate Warrior, he knows who The Rock is, he knows Undertaker, whatever, right? So we're there Sunday, we're playing, me and him are playing, and then all of a sudden in the middle of playing, he just stops dead in his tracks and looks at me and says, Uncle Joe, I need the big Ultimate Warrior. Because right now he only has the 2 Hasbro Ultimate Warriors, the jumper and the white one, right?
Yeah, and he doesn't understand the scale. They're just tiny. Why aren't they the same size as the rest of my figures?
Right, because he has an Elite Hogan. He's got an Elite Rock. He picked up an Elite Macho, right? So he says, I need the big Ultimate Warrior, right? And I say, oh, like the one, like the Hulk Hogan you have? And he says, yeah. And he goes, I don't know if I could wait till Christmas, though. And it just crushed me, you know?
Yeah.
So I asked Adam, I'm like tooling around, whatever, and off ringside, I picked up the Survivor Series 2022 Elite Ultimate Warrior with the white gear, which does look like the one that he likes the most, which I think is Warrior 2 from the Hasbro.
Yeah, it's Warrior 2, which is actually the one that I had as a kid. It's the white trunks with like the multicolor like logos sprinkled all over it.
Right, and that's what this Elite is. So I bought it. Shipped it to his house. I paid the extra $1.50 so it would go there priority. So hopefully he gets it before I see him again on Sunday, you know?
Yeah. That's all. Like I mentioned this with my nephew, like that's how he got into wrestling, is with wrestling figures. And it's say what you want about Warrior or Hogan, it's just awesome that he's a fan of like the toys, you know?
Yeah, you know, and this could be, you know, done in a month. This could be done in a year, but he likes it now, and you know, it makes me feel good to see like a kid playing with wrestling toys, you know?
Yeah, 100%. All right. My last thing or two here, Joe, I came really close to getting that Azrael Funko Pop this week.
The one that you talked about last week?
Yeah, the one that was they only made 761 of, and that I was prepared to spend folding money on.
Yeah.
There was one of them on eBay that was an auction, and I decided at the very last minute to just use the results of that auction as like a fact-finding mission, you know, as just to compile some information and then maybe not jump on the first auction. It did end relatively inexpensive compared to a lot of the buy it nows. It was cheaper by about $150. So if anything, I might use that auction result as something to go and talk to one of the people that have a buy it now up and see what I can do there. But I was really close, so much so that I actually wrote in my notes that I bought it because I had my mindset that I was going to bid on the auction, but I decided not to at the last minute.
Gotcha.
But that doesn't mean I didn't buy something Azrael related this week, Joe.
Did you buy that statue?
I didn't buy the statue because statues are not action figures, and I don't need to buy those.
All right.
But this is something that you're still about a year away from talking about on Previewing the Past. But
okay.
For Night's End, there was a comic retail poster that they made like right at the beginning of the story. It's a Joe Quesada Azrael picture. And it's actually a poster that I had up, and I'm going to shoot you a picture. I'm sure you've seen this a million times, because it's awesome. But this is a poster I had in my room as a kid. And obviously, like any poster, it's in a kid's room. It's taped up, it's taken down. It's got thumbtack holes in it, all that stuff. So it got thrown out years later. And when I first bought my house and I set up the comic room, I tracked down one of those on eBay that was like still sealed in the roll, like the original roll with the label. I bought it and I said to myself, I'm going to frame this and it's going to be awesome because I'm going to have a mint one up on the wall in my toy room or in my comic room. So I did that and I got it and it's awesome and it's up on my wall and I'm looking at it now, Joe. But then a couple months later, I said to myself, but I just had a sealed, like a mint-in roll one, Joe. And I was like, I can't believe that I ripped open the original packaging to put it up on the wall. I should have bought like a beater or something just to post it on the wall. So I set an eBay alert like 5 years ago. And Joe, just this week, a couple days ago, actually, I managed to see not only did one go up on eBay, still sealed in the original roll, but it was like a reasonable buy it now price. I clicked watch, and like a couple hours later, the guy sent me an offer for like 20% off. So I was like, dude, I was going to pay full price, but if you're going to offer me 20% off, I'll take it.
Awesome.
So I just shot you the picture of just that and the original DC roll,
Yeah, I did that a couple times for Todd when we were doing Previewing the Past, and we'd come upon like a poster or something, especially some of those original Vertigo ones,
Yeah.
And he would say, oh, I had that one on my wall, and it got all banged up and whatever it was, and I would just make the note for myself. I'm like, oh, okay. We'll pick that up for Todd. But that's pretty cool. Listen, as much as we rag on you for Azrael, and I could just not finish that sentence, that is a really cool poster.
Yeah, like I really love that piece. Like that's obviously as notorious of a gimmick that is. Like that, if you're thinking about just the over-the-top batshit crazy, just 90s-fication of Batman, like that is the most... that's the most exemplary version of it, is that picture,
Mm-hmm.
But that's actually the last thing I bought, other than the fact that I officially paid off my Camaro this week.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, so one car down, one to go. But I finally got that off the books. Look forward to getting that title mailed to me so that the bank doesn't own it anymore. But yeah, that's it for me. That's all my purchases.
So last thing I want to mention is, and this might be the only time we mention it. Maybe we'll come back. Who knows? Obviously, Mattel, hot off the heels of the failure of the Nitro ring.
Mm-hmm.
Undaunted, just about 2 days ago, they rolled out like the Jurassic Park thing.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, so I'm like, oh, I'm not going to look. I go, but I want to bring it up on the show just for like a comparison's sake. It's been up for 2 days. They have some tiered goals, 5,000, 6,000, 8,000, 10,000. Now, I don't know if you've gotten a chance to look at this or otherwise, but I'm going to click on the link and I'm going to see where they are 2 days in.
Yeah, I did take a quick look at it, but I know nothing about, not only do I know nothing about Jurassic Park, I don't know anything about these figures or the uniqueness of anything that's being offered. All I know is that the discourse on like Facebook and Twitter and stuff has been that everything other than the gates are things that have like already been available and are like at a much more reasonable price, you know? And I guess the Hammond collection is like their equivalent of like the Ultimates or like a Star Wars Black Series or a Marvel Legend or whatever, you know?
Right.
And it's $250 for the base.
Yeah, so let's see where they are. And just to see, you know, where Jurassic Park fans versus wrestling fans come in, you know?
Yep.
So it's only 17% backed.
865 out of 5,000.
Yeah, and that's 2 days, right? And again, I don't think this is going to be something that like was going to hit after, you know, a day where it was going to meet its goal or exceed past its goal. But I'm going to write that number down. I want to see if the Jurassic Park fan base is much stronger or loyal than the WCW fan base.
Again, I'm biased. I wanted the Nitro stage. That Jurassic Park thing isn't getting made. I think everybody that wanted it has already pledged for it, and it's not going to have, say what you want about like Broski or Myers, like cheerleading crowdfunding stuff. I don't think there is like a prominent voice in the Jurassic Park community that's going to be like, yeah, you need to get this or you're going to be a shitty Jurassic Park collector, you know? Like, I don't think that there's any type of peer pressure or motivation or anything like that. I think anybody that wanted it has already pledged it.
All right, well, let's revisit this in a week and see.
All right, fair enough. But that's all I got.
And that's all I got as well. So, hey, thanks, everyone, for listening to episode 248 of At Odds with Wrestling. For Adam, this is Joe saying thanks for listening. Be safe out there and enjoy some wrestling.
You're listening to the soon-to-be-named network, the Lamborghini of podcast networks.